اللهم صل على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد.
Assalamu alaikum. To all of us, especially in America today, economics seem to be the thing that holds our attention greater than anything else. However, there are remedies that have been put in place for us to be economically free and for us to be not only able to sustain ourselves, but to be able to help others as well. Most of the things that were put in place to assist us was done by another man that most of us don't even recognize as someone as being a part of our heritage. And that was a gentleman called Abraham Lincoln. He put in place a lot of proclamations that, not the ones that you hear about today, but the ones that really set things free. The 13th Amendment had 20 sections instead of just 2. And there were other proclamations that went along. They had one for compensation. They had one for setting aside a part of the country where we could be removed, that we can establish our own communities, our own government, and to be able to live among ourselves rather than intermingle with the capitals or the Europeans who came over to colonize part of the nation. The economic system that we know today, the Fairchild started for it back before many of us even thought about it. In 1871, the corporation called Washington, D.C., was renamed United States of America. Now, when it was first named Washington, D.C., it was named Washington, D.C. because the people that represented us in Washington, D.C. was supposed to ensure that each of us had our liberty to do the things that we needed to do. 1871, when they rewrote the Constitution of the United States as not under the Constitution, but they did it over the Constitution. In other words, by incorporating, using the Constitution as their rules of incorporation, it made them above the Constitution. So they did not have to do anything under the dictates of the Constitution. When they declared bankruptcy a few years later, they hid it from the people of the country. The only one who knew about it were the people in Washington, D.C., who were the legislatures and these folks. The country went along through the bankruptcy until 1898. They came up with the Bankruptcy Reform Act to tell how the country would be run. Well, their thoughts were that within 50 years, that the country would recover from bankruptcy and would go on. It did not. So in 1930, the United States, Great Britain, Spain, France, and Germany all declared bankruptcy at the International Tribunal at The Hague. When they declared bankruptcy, it left a void as far as countries were concerned. The American people were never told about the bankruptcy in 1930. In 1933, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt took office, the first thing he did was to revamp the country under bankruptcy. House Joint Resolution 192, Public Law 7310. When they did this, they took away your substance or your ability to pay anything. And because they asked the people to voluntarily to turn in their gold and silver when the people did, it meant that those people in D.C. were committing treason. In order to avoid the treason, they allowed all people to turn in all debt to the government for discharge. That system is still in place today. The only thing about it, through our public food system and public school system and everything else that they have done, they have taught you not to recognize the system as it was designed. Okay? When we look at all the things that the people are facing today, foreclosure, bankruptcy, and all those things, you can't file bankruptcy in a bankrupt situation. The country is bankrupt. Everybody in the country is bankrupt. For you to go down to the court and file bankruptcy is redundant. You're already bankrupt. How do I know? The only thing you have in order to, as a medium of exchange, is Federal Reserve notes. These little green notes that you pass around has no meaning, no stamina behind them. Why? There's no gold, there's no silver. Nothing to support your dollar. So there's no way that you can file bankruptcy while you're in bankruptcy. That's like saying that, you got a cold, but you're going to get a cold. It's an oxymoron. It doesn't really work out too well. What we have to do is two things you must do in order to get out of bankruptcy and get on solid footing. Since the country holds everyone out as a bankrupt individual, you must first object to their presumption that you're bankrupt. And then you have to make a counterclaim. And your counterclaim is they don't have the authority to state that you're bankrupt. Why? Because they are holding for each and every one of us, by virtue of a thing called your birth certificate and the social security number, they have for you what is called exemptions or credits. These exemptions are for your use to discharge your obligation. From the time you were born until the time you are 25 years of age, they sell your birthright every day on the stock exchange. Just like they do anything else. You're just another commodity. Okay? From the time you're 26 till about 50, they sell it about once a month. If you're older than 50, they sell your birthright about every 3 months, because they figure you're not going to be around long. But the one thing that the government makes sure that they get paid no matter what happens to you, everyone in here is under a life insurance policy paid by the United States government of $10 million. You die, the government gets paid. Your family might can't bury you, but the government gets paid. How do they follow you? Well, there's a system in America called the I, the R, and the S. From the day you were born, they first get your birth certificate until you die, they follow every penny that goes through your pocket. Because we voluntarily tell them what we make. We voluntarily tell them what we make. There is no law that says you must tell them anything, but we do volunteer. If you stop volunteering, the system would disrupt itself. But we are used to volunteering, okay? And everybody continues to do that. Once you make your objection, and you make an objection because they presume you to be bankrupt, but you're not. So you make an objection. Once you make that objection, you make a counterclaim for them to state the authority that they have to presume that you're bankrupt, which they can't do, because anything that's bankrupt has no authority to claim anything. We were talking about the Imam Jamil Al-Amin. He was charged by the state of Georgia. That's a presumption. In law, the state of Georgia has no authority. None. The whole trial was a sham. The thing for him to do, or his legal team to do, which I know they probably won't, is to make an objection to the authority that the state of Georgia had in order to claim that he did something. Because the only one that prosecuted him was the state of Georgia. He never shot the state of Georgia. He never did anything to the state of Georgia. It's a presumption that he is a debtor. Everyone in bankruptcy is called a debtor. You must stop the presumption, okay? Once you stop the presumption and you make a counterclaim, they have to prove their authority for doing anything. And that's not only just for that particular case. If you get a parking ticket, it means you must make an objection. Don't pay it. Make an objection. Object to the ticket and demand that the police officer explain the authority they have to write the ticket. They have none. As long as you volunteer, they win. If you ask questions, they lose. You must object to their presumption that you're guilty. If you don't object, the judge must carry it through. In economics, we are the economic stronghold for the world. We are the only ones going to prison by the busload. Don't believe me? Tomorrow morning, park your car on the corner of Joseph Lowry and Donald Lee Hollowell. You will find about 5 buses, 4 vans, and at least 3 vehicles from Fulton County Jail go to the courthouse. And I mean to correct that. There are no jails in America. They are called credit holding facility, because everyone in there is a credit to somebody's bank account. Okay? Your objection is that they don't have authority. Your counterclaim is they must present an authority. In bankruptcy, the bankrupt entity has no authority. When the United States went bankrupt, all states joined with the United States in the bankruptcy. For what purpose? To make sure that the people will never know that they're in bankruptcy. Because if the people knew, there wouldn't be nobody in Washington, D.C. now. Why send people to D.C. when the only thing they're going to do is work against you? Irregardless of who it is in D.C., John Lewis, or whatever their name is, Barack Obama, guess what? They ain't for you. There is nothing they're going to do for you. It's going to be business as usual. All the changes they talk about, those changes will never come about. Because in this country, the prison system finances the entire Caucasian world. Do you know that the state of Israel has no way for them to come up with any economical source to do anything? They don't grow anything. They don't produce nothing. All they do is fight the Palestinians for land that they stole. Because the United States and Great Britain finances that entire program. Who's going to finance our program? You're going to have to demand from the United States government they allow you to change your status. And you can. You change your status, and you demand that the government do what they promised to do in Public Law 73-10. Discharge your obligation and leave you alone. That's their only job in D.C. Once we understand how the system works, it works for us and not against us. But we have never studied the operation of our government, the man-made government. Only thing they can do is discharge your obligations. And when you object to their presumption and demand that they fulfill their obligation, that's all they can do. That's all they're supposed to do. Each one of you in this room, each one watching, is a multi-millionaire if you understand the system. You can go to Buckhead and find the biggest house and purchase it with your signature, because that's how it goes. You can go to the car dealership and don't buy one, buy a dozen. Your neighbor might need one with just your signature, because the government must discharge any obligation that you sent to them. You just have to understand how the system works. Everybody read the passage. My people died for what? Lack of knowledge. We don't read. I tell people I was a nerd growing up. I got excited reading the encyclopedia. Everybody else watching cartoons and everything else. I was excited about the encyclopedia. And the dictionary, it had words. And the meaning of words made me excited. Even today, you give me a good book on our heritage, and it's better than watching the Falcons lose or the Braves. The Falcons win or the Braves play and all those things, Because those are distractions. Those are distractions. You're all millionaires. Learn the system. Object to the foolishness and make them do the things they're supposed to do. They're obligated. Why? Because they're bankrupt. And in bankruptcy, that's all they can do. There's only one law in America. One law in America. Title 11, that's the bankruptcy law. Everything else means nothing. Everything else means nothing. Title 11 of the United States Code, Section 501, is where everybody makes their claim. Section 502 is where you make your objection. Civil Rules of Procedures, where you make your counterclaim. And brother, you were talking about a tribunal. The greatest tribunal in this country consists of 4 notary publics. One notary sending the information to 3 others, and their judgment cannot be overturned by any tribunal on the planet. That's your strongest tribunal. And in a tribunal of this type, there's always a remedy for them not acting. There are many remedies for our people who are in jail to get out. We have to understand the process. We have to understand the process. We don't want to be an economic tool for them. We want to learn that we can have an economic tool from them for us. We are the only sovereign people on this land. And we are acting like we came from someplace else. I don't know about you, but my ancestors were here thousands of years before Columbus ever came about. Okay? Didn't have nothing to do with the slave trade. That was something, and when you really look at the ships built back in those days, only 2% of the people that came here actually arrived. Economics, we have it. All we have to do is understand the system and apply it. It's not hard to do. I hate to say, but one of the things that you're going to have to understand is that as long as you are talking with attorneys, he will never be free. You have to get away from attorneys. Attorneys are not your friend. They're not there to help you. They cannot help you because their job is to ensure that you are incarcerated. And they can't go against their job because then he can't drive that Mercedes he's driving. He can't charge you $200 for 15 minutes, And the little bar card he has is a right to practice law, not to know law, but to practice. And that's why he's an attorney at law, because he's not an attorney of law. And again, look in the law dictionary and find the definition of the two words, and you'll find exactly that little word, at and of, is very significant to what you're playing with. You must object to the authority of the court to prosecute him prior to him ever being free. Again, you have to look up the word. When you talk about representation, you must first break the words down. Re, R-E, means no, not, or none. Pre, P-R-E, means no, not, or none. And then sent, S-E-N-T. So you have no, non-sent. When you go into court with an attorney by your side and he represents you, you're telling the judge that you're an idiot. You cannot speak for yourself. You have no way of understanding right from wrong. Look it up in Black's Law Dictionary, and you will see that the worst thing you can do to your life is to walk into court with an attorney by your side. Because when you do, you're giving up all rights to walk out of there with your liberty. There's only 3 things you can do, actually 4 things that you can do when you walk into court with an attorney. You're going to go to jail, you're going to get a heavy fine, you're going to be on probation, or a combination of all 3. Only thing that's going to happen to you. If you stand as yourself, a flesh and blood man or woman, that's what the Creator made you. Allah made you a man, made you a woman. Didn't make you a person. Person is a non-living entity. Now, I'm a good person. No, you're not. You can't be living and dead too. And that's what persons mean. You're not living. We accept words from people. We never question none. And I'm going to tell you this one, and then I'm going to sit down. Gentlemen, when I explain this to you, women, I hope you never use it again. You hear a lot of men talk about, oh, this is my queen. Well, in 1627, the word was spelled K-W-E-E-N, queen. And it meant a man dressed as a woman. And the king, K-Y-N-G, meant the companion of the queen. Now, if you got a queen, then you're both homosexuals. And the Creator had nothing to do with that. Understand words. They're very important. Words are very important. If you don't understand them, please look them up. Don't assume anything. Prove all things. Hold fast to that which is good. If it ain't good for you, leave it alone. There are no other questions.
Allahumma salli ala